Coaching to Flourish podcast. I am your host, Raj Anderson, executive life coach and coach assessor. And I'm really excited today because I'm here as usual with John Andrew Williams, who's the founder of Coach Training EDU. But we're being joined by a special guest, Eric. I'd love for you to introduce yourself to us.
Hi, I'm Eric Valeri. I'm currently a coach in training with Coach Training EDU. I did this coming demo with John here, so I'm here to spectate as the client on
Thank
the
you for
aftermath.
joining us. Thank you so
My
much
pleasure.
for joining us. And John, what would you add before we start to get into everything?
Not much. Just super psyched to be here. Good to see you again, Raj. It's not the same when I'm by myself, just doing the things. Yeah, this is better. And Eric, really happy to have you here too. It's extra fun to have a client, and it really is an unusual. I was thinking about this whole thing. It's an unusual conversation. Coaching in general is an unusual conversation. Like it's one of the I mean, like all conversations are in some way have like rules, like or guidelines or even small talk. But coaching is cool because one person is a designated listener, the other person is a designated talker, and then now in this conversation we have a designated listener, designated talker, listening to their designated listening, their designated talking, and plus an observer. I mean, it's just you start to get the levels of this. It starts to become okay. So who's doing what? Which is the real person? And then we're recording this. And we're going to get this one recorded too. Yeah, it feels like layers upon layers. So that's all I want to add. We ready? Should we jump in?
Yeah, let's do it, John.
Let's jump in. I have not reviewed this since we coached Eric. So it's all fresh, new. And here we go. Floor is yours. What would you like to focus on? I don't know why that's where we started, but the floor is yours, is what I said.
There's been a lot of changes in my life recently. Life coaching, changes in the office. Girlfriend moved in. Some good, some not so great. Girlfriend thing is good. Don't worry about that. I've with all these changes, I've been trying to like find a new normal, trying to like set up my life and continue going. But I've been busy. But the main problem has been I've been feeling drained a lot, and I've been just consistently like tired. And it's getting to a point where it's like, well, where am I missing here? Where's the disconnect? And I'm not sure what's going on there. But yeah, I've mainly just been tired, and it's just like weird.
Mm-hmm. Why is the new normal important to find?
It's so that way I don't have to. That way I have some structure. I'm not spending more energy than I need to. I'm not, and that way I can actually focus on the things I want to focus on and set my intentions, set my time intentionally, focusing on the things I want to do. So a new normal would benefit me in actually moving towards my goals in the future I want to.
Okay. What if tired is the new normal?
Oof. Oof. That's not, yeah.
Yeah, we think.
What are you thinking, Eric, as you're
Yeah,
listening to
I
it?
know.
So this is really surreal, honestly. I didn't realize how much I move around when I talk. It's crazy. It's just little things you don't notice. I will say that question specifically. There's a lot more that we kind of move past and like do some other things in here, but that question I think has stayed with me up till now, and I think that has caused a lot of like post coaching session introspection. Uh, like I've leaned into that question a lot, and I think it was good. It's provided a lot more insights and like changes in my life. It was at the time I was like, what the heck is he saying to me? But it was very useful. Very, very useful question.
Thanks, Eric. In
John,
real
what would
time,
you add?
yeah, in real time, I was like, this is awesome. I got a good one. Yep. What do you think, Raj?
I mean, what, it's 1 minute, 50 seconds, and you're right in there, direct question, holding up that mirror, and you see the shifts and Eric thinking right there in that moment.
Yeah, I think this is a textbook prickly question.
Yeah.
It's not, but I'm not asking it to be like mean. I'm asking it to be like, let's just shake this up and ask a question that might be unusual, but I'm also listening from a very empathetic standpoint. So I'm like in there. There's so much you could unpack from there. I mean, even that very subtle mention of, oh, I moved in with my girlfriend, like just a little, you know what I mean? Just like almost, let's let that go out the window, But look at my little wry smile. I knew in real time, like, yeah.
It's right there.
Right there.
So just to let you know, coaches, I hear this question asked all the time. How do I ask a prickly question? What might be an example of it, yet with empathy and being courageous? Here is an example right here.
Yeah. I also like what you're speaking to, Eric, how much coaching happens after the session too. And it's often these questions that are asked of us that are the questions that are like, okay, like what is the what's real here? And I could coach tired you, right? Or how do you get untired or whatever. But I think part of it in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, tired, let's embrace it. Like what happens when you embrace it? And it's not fun, it's not happy, but it is useful. And this reminds me of I went through a leadership program with Laura Whitworth before she passed. This is 2007. And she was talking about the opportunity of a coaching session is to go into dangerous territory, but to go into dangerous territory with someone with you. And you don't get to often do that without someone judging it or trying to figure out what's happening or assessing it somehow or giving a diagnosis or giving advice. Like, so coaching offers this unique opportunity to go to that space, but to do it with not a guide, but a supporter, you know? And so that's where this question is coming from more than anything. All right, here we go.
That's a good, interesting thought. Definitely don't like the sound of that. Because I've been tired before, and I'm tired now. It's just not a great feeling. But maybe it is. I don't know. I guess I have to think about that. Preferably not. Ideally not.
Just sitting with it for a minute.
Yeah.
What's the most uncomfortable part about sitting with it?
The panic, I think. I had a little bit of like, ooh. Because I know there's more to life than being stressed out and tired, and I've experienced the good parts about things, so I know there's things can be better. So like if tired is the new normal, the feeling that comes up is like, well, that can't be right.
Yeah.
There's more to this.
Right.
Yeah.
Sweet. So let's go there. If that's the message of the emotion, what's the thing that you feel like unravels it?
Unravels the emotion.
Unravels the situation.
The situation. Ooh, yeah. Let's see. I think unravels the situation. I think it has to do with A lack of time spent on things that actually matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is a lot of resistance, one, in, I guess, trying to find a new normal. And there's a lot of resistance to, I guess, change in general.
Mm-hmm.
Because my life was good, and now thrown into chaos, and now I'm trying to settle things down. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I hope that answered your question.
What would the measure?
Okay. I was going to play stop the recording and what question would you ask next, but I already went for it, the measurement question. But I'm curious, Raj, I saw the eyebrows there for a second with one of those questions.
Yeah, and then I'm like, there's a measure question. So you know when I get asked,
Yeah, I was thinking,
I'm
Raj is
like,
feeling uncomfortable. She's going to step in. And say,
there it is for the time model, everyone. But John is demonstrating an MCC version of the time model beautifully. Oh, I I have to say that I get asked these questions. The question, it was like I could see. It was like a metaphorical question, wasn't it? When you were asking about the unraveling of the situation, and it was just you could see Eric's discomfort initially with the question, and when Eric said about feeling the panic, and I felt that you connected with that when you asked the question around unraveling. Eric, what do you think as you're listening again?
I think that question, like what unravels the situation, it caught me off guard in the sense that I wasn't fully sure how to answer it at first. So I kind of had like a bit of a mind blank. But it was useful because it was like forced me into some kind of critical thinking in the moment. Um, and I appreciate how much time and space that John had lent me there as I was thinking. Um, I it's a bit hard to like come back to exactly what was going through my head at that point in time, but I know that I was trying to figure out the crux of everything as best as I could. Um, but it was definitely helpful for sure.
yeah, I think on the surface, where I went and where I saw your eyebrows go, Raj, and I was imagining what you were thinking with that as well, is it's a solution question. Like, what's the solution to this? Right. And so it's a little bit of a risk question to ask us, like with the fourth question in minute mark 4. But I wasn't really curious in a solution. He was like, oh, I need to go to bed earlier. I'm like, all right, that's fine. But it's more around, I was asking it more from like sitting here right now, what do you know you need to do that you're not yet doing? It's sort of where I'm at with it, but I was more interested in where is that internal resistance coming from? Like that was the question that I had. That would have been my next question. Like, what's the resistance? But I like the word unravel so much. I don't know. It just something about that word. And that you picked up on that, Raj. Phil, thank you.
Yeah, I loved that word, and I think this goes back to we talked about even a couple of weeks ago that John, when you are at may ask a solution or what might seem like a doing question early on, it is a purposeful question to go deeper. It's not because you are trying to get to an action plan necessarily at this point. It's a purposeful question here.
Yeah, it was interesting because it was also, I think, the cadence and the timing of it. Because it was like, okay, so with the emotion, what's the message of the emotion? Sit with the emotion. What happens with the emotion? You're sitting with tired, and here's tired. Okay, cool. Tired. Welcome in the door. Tired. Okay, here we are. What do we need? And what's here? And yeah, I think and it's interesting. I feel like it's in, and then the measurement. So now I'm back in the time model, and now we're back into solid territory. And uh, But I think so far, I would send this into an MCC. I would send this in for the ICF. So far, so good. Here we go.
Of our success together look like?
Honestly, I think it's probably going to be direct. I would love a direction, just like what needs to change, and like a point towards that, I guess.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Direction, action. Sounds like action step and milestone.
That'd be cool. Even less than that, I'd be okay with.
Okay.
Or just like eventually get to this point.
Sweet. Time model done.
So many places to go.
I'm glad. That's great. Better than-
All right, let's play the game. What question would you ask next? Eric, you can play too. Actually, you want to go first?
Oh man. This is so weird figuring out what to ask my own self. I probably would go in the direction of something to do with like you said earlier, the resistance.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be something I would want to explore. But
What would
that's
the
just
question
my
be?
2 cents.
Yeah.
What is this resistance doing for you? I'd probably just ask something like that.
I like that one a lot. Really like that.
Ooh, okay.
Well, you actually have one right now?
Well, firstly, go, Eric. Right, we're
Yeah.
right. We're live across all these platforms. This is being recorded. You're watching yourself. You're being incredibly courageous and vulnerable, just watching yourself back in this moment. And now we're like, oh, give us a coaching question as well, Eric. And you gave an incredible coaching question. I just want to acknowledge you right now.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
What do you think, John?
Yeah, I mean, this is fun. This is what I mean. It's the meta of the meta, and
Absolutely.
It is a very interesting experience just being here, watching myself, and then having a question for myself at that point. It's pretty surreal, but I do like it. This is great.
So much learning and so many levels. I was curious about the resistance too. And I can feel the energy in the session. It's almost like it's here, right, round about this. So I'm almost curious about where that is experienced in the body and things like that is what I'm connecting to with that resistance. I'm very curious about it.
Mhm. Yeah, the resistance pops up for me too. That feels like the way to go in this. I mean, I'm also curious where I think just even what's happening internally, just even talking about this. Like, I mean, I'd probably go with like what's shifting even now is probably what I would go with. But we'll see where I go with. See what Coach John said.
Let's start with the end spot.
Okay.
What's that?
That's solid too.
What's that space? What's that goal that you want?
That's nice.
It's a good thing I have a vision board.
I want to pause this too for a second. So I've often found when there's so many places to go and I'm not quite sure where to go with this, it's helpful to get a picture or what's the end point? Like, what are you really after? What is it you really want? Kind of established. And so that's what I'm doing here. I like that one here.
And can I just add, John, it was interesting what happened to Eric's energy when you asked that question. His body posture, there was a change in energy. Did you notice that, Eric?
I did, yeah. I got excited when he asked that question.
Definite shift. There's almost like an end scene, like the time, end scene one. Now we're into scene two, kind of energy. See what happens.
End spot.
Yeah, I should back up just a
Eventually,
second.
my goal.
What's that space? What's that goal that you want?
It's a good thing I have a vision board. The end spot. Eventually, my goal is have a family. I live comfortably, and I get to coach people and help people. I think that is my end goal, along with, having time to do a few hobbies here and there, socialize and all that kind of stuff. But I think more than anything else, the end goal is peace.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. What's the morning habit that you're not yet doing that promotes that peace?
Sunrise. Watching the sunrise. I think that's the thing that, like, I feel I'm always lacking in, is not waking up early enough and not being able to get out of bed early enough. I think is where I'm lacking, because I can do my meditation, my workouts, my breathing, whatever. But just getting out of bed to go see the sunrise is something that I definitely think is missing. That's a good question. That came to me immediately. That's crazy.
What's the resistance to that?
That was what I was going for.
I think
I want to make it tangible. I know I'm solution-y questioning again, but I wanted something tangible so we could I needed something to push against. And I think that's what I was going for. There's a resistance question.
It's so
7 minutes.
symbolic. As Eric sits there with sunrise behind him.
I know.
I'm very
looking like-
sun oriented.
Looking like like a saint in like one of those Latin, what I mean, like in St. Peter's.
Oh yeah.
How
did you get there, John? Do you think, with those questions there at that point?
With the resistance? Well, I feel like the resistance, you have to go there. Like, that is such a generous client, Eric, like that was just generous clienting all around. I was like, wow, you're talking resistance. Like it's like basically you're talking coaching love language, like you're going into the internal world of, I mean, it's just fascinating, right? Like why do we have resistance to the things that we know that we most need to do? That is fascinating. And you think about, I mean, a lot of it, I think, comes down to brain development, right? Because there's different, you have the limbic system, you have the brain stem, and then the frontal cortex, and they all are competing in some ways. It's endlessly fascinating. I think it's endlessly useful to look at some of these things like this. That's where I was coming from. I was holding the resistance until it's a minute marker 7 here. Yeah. I'm also thinking sunrise, you're tired. Why do you want to get up early? Like that was the next question, but I went for resistance instead. So that was question B.
The other thing I'm thinking here, John, as well, because there was the solution question before, and it sounds like a doing question.
Mhm.
Yet Eric is able to go deeper. He came up with a kind of different and a meaningful habit versus if you had a client who was all about doing, maybe they would go to something that could be on a checklist or something. I don't know, it just felt like a differentiate, because you meet your client where they're at, don't you? Right. So as coaches, we can also see how those questions are going to land where with somebody like Eric, who is going deeper, right? He is reflecting, he's being generous, as you said. But sometimes I get clients who are not used to coaching, or perhaps not used to holding the mirror up to themselves, or a bit resistant to go deeper. And I would avoid the doing questions with those kinds of clients. But with clients I've worked with for a while, I might bring them up sooner because they lean into their learning and being. I was just making an observation there as coaches, how we meet our clients where they're at as well.
Yeah. I'm curious about in this one is I'm curious about like the 1-2 questions because I'm realizing in this one more than I mean, it's just coming clear. I mean, this one is a very stark example of I think this is the second time in 7 minutes here that I've asked a question. Like I've almost had 2 questions, but I'm like, okay, here's part 1. And then part 2 is resistance. So I'm asking, yeah, and I know why. I mean, I'm remembering almost completely. Like in this space, I wanted a tangible action step so that we could make the resistance feel more real and less theoretical. And then getting up in the sunrise is perfect. I mean, it's a perfect question. I mean, it's the perfect metaphor, Eric, for where you're at with it. Like as a client, I'm like, yeah, cool. Love to hear your thoughts at this point.
I mean, I think going towards like the resistance and stuff makes a lot of sense. The sunrise, I probably would have asked, like, what does that do? What does the sunrise give you that you don't already have or something like that?
No, interesting. Yeah.
But that's just what I would figure. But this is, of course, coming from me coaching myself, right? So that's the kind of thing that I feel like I may have like not the best grasp of. Is just like benefits or cons and stuff like that, where I don't always have the best ideas of a certain outcome or like what exactly about this is going. I just say something, but I don't exactly know why that's super uber helpful. That's kind of how I work. And thank you to Raj for bringing up like having a client that is introspective and knows how to do that internal work and can go deep.
Yeah.
Versus someone that doesn't really have that so much.
Yeah. I know, Raj, you work with a lot of executive clients, and they, in my experience, tend to be the most guarded. Like, takes them a little bit to open up completely, if ever. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you, Eric. I mean, part of it, I mean, that the reason behind the morning question wasn't so that we could find something that you're not yet doing, not to find like a benefit, but it was to basically add tangibility to the resistance questions.
For sure. And as we continue to listen to this, that does help. Like it did help, and like that was for sure crucial. That was just my my idea as still not a somewhat inexperienced coach, still in training, right?
This is lovely.
So
I mean, I was there too.
For sure, absolutely.
I spent years solution hunting. Like it was painful.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's very interesting though. Like I like this a lot. Very interesting stuff.
I mean, this is cool for me too, because I think what it's doing, like for me, it's definitely showing patterns in my coaching and me watching my coaching and this kind of thing too. For me, like I'm really curious. Like my biggest takeaway from this and the curiosity I have is asking questions that build on the other question before it. So I'm not only am I as a coach, I'm building on what you're saying, right? But I'm also building on what I just asked, which is also built on what you're saying. So, I mean, if we have a theme to this coaching of flourish, it's got to be layers and stacking questions. That doesn't show up in any of the curriculum much. We don't talk about questions that are built on, asking follow-up questions. Like that's nowhere in any of the curricula. That's fascinating.
It's very useful experience I've had. I've done that in some calls I've done. And it's been like the best part of the sessions is the follow-up.
John's coming up with ideas as he.
I know. I'm like thinking, oh goodness, is this a chapter in the 2.0? Is this another like where does it fit? Is it? Like, where's this fit?
I can see that, and I know we are at time, and I want to continue this. So I know that we can have Eric here for probably 6 months going over this and talking and going into layers. Yeah, John, I can see that there's opportunity here, isn't there? There's some really great, rich learning that is happening from this. Eric, what have been your takeaways from this experience today?
That's a good question. I think my takeaways have been, one, adding like tangibility in the beginning for someone that is particularly aware of things could be beneficial, like John mentioned, to sort of have something to work with going forward. I think that's probably been the biggest takeaway. I know it can be, for me, in my experiences, I've had like one or two clients that has been very introspective and can go super deep. I'm almost intimidated because they know themselves so well, but it's like I have no reason to be intimidated because if anything, it makes my job easier, right? So it's just very, very interesting here. Um, and like you said, I think if you can just calm down and just see how much ammunition an introspective person can give you, there's so much you can talk about. I'm sure, like John said in the very beginning, there was so much that he could go to or talk about, right? It's just fun stuff.
Thank you, Eric. You've been fantastic and so generous, and just learning so much, just not from the session, but even from you right now. John calls it borrowed insight. I borrow that borrowed insight right now. So many layers. I'm learning so much, and the word that's coming to me, it's actually my word of the year, is evolve. But the evolution here, right? As we're listening to John coaching you, beautiful time model, and then this kind of part 1 and 2 that's happening with questions. I wish we had more time because I want to explore that more, John.
I know, it's the feeling I get every coaching or Flourish. It's a good feeling. It's like, there's always more to go. So next week, and we'll finish part 2 of next week. Eric, if you can come back next week, that'd be lovely.
I can make it work, I'm sure.
Sweet. And we got through 7 minutes. So theoretically, we got through 7 minutes of a 22-minute session. That would be 3 weeks, but I think we can get through the next one. We'll jump around a little bit. Yeah, thank you, Eric. It's really fun to have.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, listen to the session that was recorded. And Raj, it's great to have you back.
Great to be back. And thank you, John. Thank you for sharing some really beautiful coaching there. So thank you, Eric. Thank you, John. Thank you to everyone who is listening. And then join us next time for part 2. See you.